Baltimore city leaders voted Wednesday to use $6 million in park funding to help pay for a ransomware attack that infected local government computers last May. The Baltimore Sun reports that the new funds will pay for, quote, cyber attack remediation and hardening of the environment. The city is also considering buying insurance against future cyber attacks. CNET senior producer Dan Patterson joins me now to talk more about this. So, Dan, this is really interesting. You've contacted Baltimore city officials about this attack. How has that been going, and what can you tell us about how they're trying to safeguard against potentially future attacks?
Well, we've tried to contact the city of Baltimore 7 times today. In that process, we were disconnected, hung up on, sent to the wrong CIO, and given email addresses that bounced back. So it's challenging to understand what the state of Baltimore's cyber preparedness or remediation is right now. But what we can do is look at recent history as well as how other cities have managed similar types of ransomware and cyber attacks. So Baltimore was hit on the 7th of May this year, and we should put air quotes around the word pay, because no matter what, when you're hit with a ransomware attack, you're going to pay someone somewhere. In this case, Baltimore has been trying to remediate the effects of this. They've been trying to recover their data, find machines that were not infected. The problem is that ransomware spreads across a network and it affects individual machines. So this particular form of ransomware, you can unlock one machine, but that doesn't mean you're unlocking additional machines. So if all of the infrastructure that you use to run a city is spread across a number of machines, you have to pay a number of times or pay one large sum. And of course, you're paying, if you're not paying the ransomer, you're paying vendors, security vendors to try to recover that data. You're paying any number of people involved in this chain. So it's real challenging to kind of figure out. We see that number of $6 million, but they've already spent about $18 million, at least that's what's been reported, trying to recover. So you're paying someone somewhere, if not the ransomers.
So, I mean, is it clear how costly these incidents are? And also, why is it that these attackers are going after mostly smaller cities as opposed to sort of larger areas? Yeah,
so the smaller city answer is pretty easy to understand. Just like attacking small businesses or even consumers, this is a market. And many of these cities simply don't have the budget that a large city might have for cyber defense. And they might not have the knowledge of how to prepare against a cyber attack, and they might not have the incentives or think that we're a small town, how could we possibly be victims to this? Of course, ransomware can spread anywhere, and it can be launched against almost anyone, so almost anyone can be a target. But look, the larger problem that exists here is that these forms of digital weapons, offensive digital weapons, proliferate pretty easily, and they're modified pretty easily. So it is a game of whack-a-mole at very large scale.
Right, because then you figure even if you try to take preventative measures, it's very easy to then sort of adjust, right, for these attackers. I mean, so that leads me to my next question. Is there a way to prevent these kinds of attacks? And if so, what is it that these smaller municipalities especially should be doing?
That answer is also incredibly easy. The answer is yes. These are not sophisticated attacks in terms of the threat vector. When I say threat vector, I mean how they get into a system. In fact, I spoke to a gentleman earlier today. We often talk about phishing attacks because they're really easy. Phishing was quite likely the culprit here.
Remind us, that's where you open up something you think
you get a link and it says, hey, Elaine, click this.
And you click on a link and there you go.
So just never click on a link in an email. But they also said, look, I spoke with the CTO of Emerysoft. They make software for small businesses, enterprise companies, and consumers, cyber defense software, pretty easy to understand. He said, look, this was likely caused by weak or linked credentials, meaning like you use kind of a cheap password, right? These are easy to guess for machines especially, or a lack of two-factor, meaning you should have that second password sent to you via text message, or even better, using an application like Google Authenticator or Authly. These apps provide, the jargon is a little complex, two-factor, multi-factor, but really it's a second password. So that if you click on a link or if you compromise your first password, it requires a second password in order to allow a system download something or to log in. So those things right there
that could
can
be
prevent,
enough.
That can be enough. The second thing is just cyber education. Really, when I talk to companies large and small, especially Cisco, IBM, Microsoft, Google, they all tell me the exact same thing. Use long, strong, and diverse passwords. Don't reuse passwords. This is called credential stuffing. All of us are tempted to reuse a password. Don't, because if a site like, say, LinkedIn is hacked and compromised, then hackers will take that database and apply it to other types of sites to see if you use the same or a very similar password. Don't use the same password twice. Use two-factor on everything that provides two-factor. And make sure you use a password manager like LastPass, OnePass. These will generate long, weird, diverse passwords. I don't know any of my passwords. So those are things that you can do and that cities should do, that businesses should do. It'll cost you less than $12 a year. That could save you millions.
Yeah, I mean, you can see, though, how some people might say, well, that's kind of inconvenient. I'd rather just remember something. But obviously, in this day and age.
You know what's more inconvenient, Elaine?
Getting hacked.
And look, when I talk to other cyber experts, they say, you know, if you want to know how much this might cost your business, IBM puts out an annual report called the Cost of a Data Breach Report for business. But if you think about this with cities and municipalities, this isn't private money, this is taxpayer money. So your inconvenience, if you work for a city, could cost taxpayers millions of dollars.
Yeah, when you put it that way. All right, the price of inconvenience does not seem so high then. All right, Dan Patterson. Dan, thank you so much.
Good to see you.